This is So in Flow, a podcast to help you activate the power of creative flow in every part of your life, business, and of course, creative process to make your creative dreams reality. This podcast is produced in collaboration with Seahorse Bookstore, the independent bookstore with a mission to awaken the imagination. Order your books and stream your audiobooks through Seahorse. Hey, this is Molly Murray. Welcome to So in Flow. Hey there, I'm your host, Molly Murray. I am a creative flow coach, a rapid transformational therapy practitioner, and an energy healer. And I own Seahorse Bookstore, an independent bookstore on the southwest coast of Scotland, with my husband, Gordon Murray. I help creative people heal the rejection wound and bring creative flow into every area of their lives to become thriving artists. I believe that the block is the way, and the issues that are holding us back also hold the treasures we need to become who we need to be to reach our goals. Hello, So in Flow. I am so excited to introduce our guest to you today. I am here today with Joanna Hunter, who I have to say is one of my dream guests to have on this podcast. So Joanna Hunter is an international metaphysical teacher, author, speaker, and channel for the transcendent collective consciousness known as Skylar, is on a soulful mission. She is here to weave the teachings of Skylar into the fabric of Earth, reviving magic, abundance, and a profound connection to Source. Joanna brings a refreshing, no-nonsense approach, often hailed as the most down-to-earth woo coach you'll ever encounter. Thank you so much for being here today, Joanna.
Thank you, Molly, for having me. I am so excited to be on this podcast and to talk all things flow and creativity. What a dream come true.
This is a total dream come true for me. I have to just put out another little introduction here. So when I was at the beginning of my business, wondering just kind of in between a few names, Joanna actually helped me nail down the name So in Flow, because that is my purpose here on earth. And she helped me come to that name. So I have a very special just tingle about today's interview, because how magical is that she helped me come to that through Skylar. And here we are sitting on the So in Flow podcast, like total chills. Thank you so much, Joanna. Could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what your mission is here on this earth, what you're creating?
Yeah, sure. So I live in the magical Highlands of Scotland, but I was originally born in Stockholm in Sweden. And I was born with my spiritual gifts switched on, like firmly in the on position. So that made me like that weird child as a child growing up. And it was very character building childhood. But as the years grew and grew on, I learned to begin to really harness my spiritual gifts. And I really believe that I'm here to reconnect people with their own internal magic. And that has a lot to do, I feel like, with creativity as well, but also to help them to reconnect with their source connection, or their connection to source, or if they want to call it God or universe or whatever, we can work with any name that feels comfortable to my clients. But it's really having that profound source connection, of that feeling that you are being guided in your life, that feeling that there is something bigger than you that you can connect to, so that you always have that deep sense of belonging and that deep sense of being looked after, like something or somebody has got your back. And I love that, because so many of us live such disconnected lives, and you know, we're stressed out to the max. We have weird aches and pains in our bodies and things like that. And I think, you know, these are all symptoms of a disconnection with source. And what my mission here on earth is to really reintroduce a relationship to the divine, without, maybe a lot of people sometimes are put off with the divine relationship because they've maybe had religious dogma or something like that pushed down their throats from a young age, and they're just, no thank you. And I feel like in a way it's a shame because there is something there that I think helps people feel more whole and complete in their lives. And that's my hope, is that I leave people better than I found them.
Oh, that is just so beautiful. And I think you touched on so many beautiful points in telling us about that. And one of those is just this connection with the divine. We all need that. And I feel so much like that is part of what drives us to creativity so much of the time, is it is this communication and this communion with the divine. What are your views on creativity, where it stems from, inspiration? Could you tell us more about that?
Well, actually, I have a view on creativity and things like that that is more in alignment with like the ancient Romans. So I love this kind of little history fact of the ancient Romans believed that nobody was a genius, and they also believed that genius would visit upon you. It was a divine energy that would visit upon a person, and they would become a channel for genius. And they also believed that in written works, that the muse or the muses would come upon you and then inspire, and you would co-create with the divine through you, through these energies that weren't actually yours. They were kind of on loan to you from the universe, and that they got to be expressed through you. And I love those things because I think one of the things that we do in life, especially around things like genius and stuff like that, is that um, it feels very much like, well, that person's a genius, but you might not be. And what I love about the Romans, the ancient Romans idea of genius, is that anyone could be one. Anyone could be the conduit for that. And Skylar, my own spirit team, they teach us that we are the conduit by which our life flows. And so I love this idea that creativity, that we can be a conduit for creativity, we can be a conduit for genius, we can be a conduit for the muse, and something bigger than us can stir through us and connect us with something amazing. And I like that take on creativity.
Oh, I love that so much. I studied the classics in college, and I remember just diving into um all these myths like Ovid and Herodotus, and I came to that belief as well, just that the muse, and also that the muse is still here with us, has been with us throughout all these ages, was the Holy Spirit in the Old Testament, and has, just appeared in every culture in some form or another, um, or in many forms like the nine muses. And so I love watching that come down to our culture today. We see in speakers like Stephen Pressfield, and then in healers like yourself. For anyone who is wondering how they can get in touch with their creativity and their muse and this divine team, could you tell us a little bit more?
I think if you think of yourself as a conduit of energy, a conduit is, it's not super glamorous to think of oneself as a hose pipe, but if you pinch the hose pipe, there is no flow, right? And if you allow the hose pipe to naturally expand, there's lots of flow through the hose pipe. And I think this is it, and so what pinches the hose pipe? Well, modern life is not kind to the hose pipe in a way. We're stressed, we're busy, the mind's full of clutter, the houses are full of clutter, like all of the things. And this really stifles creativity. So for me, I think opening up creativity is really about allowing yourself to relax, allowing yourself to create maybe the space that you need for creativity. I think a lot of people struggle with maybe creativity sometimes because they don't have the space for it. And, it doesn't mean that you have to like move house and have an art studio or something like that. Wonderful if you can do that. But if you can't do that, space can sometimes be time. setting aside time to just sit and be creative and do whatever comes through that day. And I know that if you keep doing that on a regular and consistent basis, it's the creativity just starts to come more and more and more, and it starts to flow more and more, and you're encouraging that flow. And in the beginning, it might be just a trickle, but as Skylar likes to say, where there's a trickle, there's a flow, and the flow will come. It's just that patience. But I think, in modern life, we're quite busy and stuff like that. So, we think, oh, we don't have time and stuff like that. But, how are we using our time? Are we using our time looking at other people's creativity, like television, for instance? And are you enjoying everything that you're watching? Or could you have a couple of nights off from television and do something else that maybe fuels your creativity instead? So I feel that's probably the best way to start getting creativity moving for someone.
Yes, I love that. What are some of the ways that you like to get creativity moving for yourself? Where do you find flow in your life?
So I am literally the poster girl for being multi-passionate. So, and I would definitely say that the reason I am so multi-passionate is because I'm so creative. I have loads of creative avenues and things. So, I love reading, I love writing, I love creating new programs in my business. I'm a prolific creator within my business. But then I also do things like art and paint, and I even make jewelry and things. And so I really am the poster child for multi-passionate. And a lot of the people that I coach in business tend to have this multi-passionate nature. So for me, it's not really difficult to tap into the creativity because she's literally always there. And I'm one of these humans that have at least 50 million business ideas every single day. And so creativity is just something I really walk with every day. And I love to indulge it. But one of the biggest channels for my creativity has been my business. It's the perfect vehicle for being such a creative person because it's allowed me to create lots of different things. Like I love when I get to do the branding, for instance, but then equally I love when I get to create the program. And then I love when I get to create sessions for clients. And then I love when getting creative within the programs and things like that. So for me, it's been a marvelous channel for being able to channel all of this creativity out into the world. And then, of course, there's the books and the card decks that I write on top of that. So there's a lot.
Oh, I love that. The books and the card decks, everything. There's layers and layers of it. You are creating such beautiful things in your business. Could you tell us more about your projects and the impact that you are creating? Like one of my favorite phrases, a ripple makes a wave, and you are making so many ripples and waves across the world. So just tell us a little bit about that if you'd like.
So in 2021, I ran the world's largest metaphysical experiment. And I think experiments are really a beautiful playground for creativity. And so the experiment asked this really, really juicy question: can mindset and intuition training, along with $1 million plan, make you a millionaire in just 1 year? And we started that whole experiment in playful curiosity vibes. I had no idea what was going to happen when I launched that. I launched it at a ridiculously low price of $25. And it was a whole year, and you got mindset and intuition training for the whole year. And, I had no idea how it was going to play out. Well, it turned out it went viral, and 4,300 people joined us. And it was really, really insane. But one of the beautiful things with creating $1 million year in just 1 year is that you really have to tap into the creative channels, right? Like it, yes, you can, if you got a job and they said, well, we'll pay you $1 million a year for that job, right? Maybe not so much creativity required, but for most people to generate $1 million in a year, it would mean some type of self-employment or something where they would have to generate and create that money in some way, shape, or form. And so that was really, really exciting. And at the end of the year, every participant, one in 287 participants had reached $1 million year. So we had created 15 brand new millionaires just in that 1 year. And we had definitely answered that resounding yes, that mindset and intuition training along with $1 million plan can make you a millionaire in just 1 year. And so that was really exciting. And it was really exciting to hear how everybody had kind of arrived and created that goal. Well, we're running the experiment again in 2024, which is really, really exciting. And we're already at the time of recording this podcast, we have already have over 750 participants. So already signed up, and we don't start till January. So it's exciting. But that's one of my biggest projects that I'm working on at the moment. And then I have several book projects that I'm working on. I'm writing a very exciting project that feels so right. And I'm really, really enjoying the process of writing this book. It's called Living with Skylar. And so Skylar are my spirit team. They're the collective consciousness that I channel. And it's 365 lessons. So one lesson for every single day of the year. And Skylar has had such a profound effect on my life and on my clients' lives, and even to a certain degree, even Molly here, you know, even yourself, and helping to name your podcast. They are this incredible, beautiful spiritual wisdom that I think kind of really just brings you home to yourself. And so this book that I'm writing at the moment, it is so juicy. I'm like savoring every lesson as it's coming through me, and I'm writing the page for that lesson and my insights on the lesson. So it'll have the lesson from Skylar, and then underneath it has the insight for that. And I think it's going to be, it just feels like a very much a cornerstone piece of content in my world.
Oh, how exciting. I cannot wait to read that. I can't wait to carry it in our bookshop. And I'm doing a little manifesting myself right now, and that I hope to see you here someday having a signing or a workshop or all together.
I would love that. I would love that. Count me in.
Yay, that'll be really, really fun. One thing, I mean, there are so many things I absolutely adore about you, Joanna, but one thing that I think would really speak to our audience is your view on being a thriving artist. So often we have starving artists and creative people who aren't making the money that they deserve. And I know this is one of the pillars of your teaching. Could you tell us just a little more about your money mindset?
Absolutely. I mean, I think abundance is our birthright. And how do we know that abundance is our birthright? So let's start right at the very top of the shop, right? How do we know abundance is our birthright? Well, has anyone been like stony broke and like felt genuinely good about it? You know, like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know how I'm going to live beyond the end of this week, but I feel so freaking amazing in the realm of the unknown, right? Like, no human ever said that. And so we know that it makes more logical sense that something that is natural to us feels natural to us and feels good. And it doesn't actually feel natural to a human being. We can get used to it, I suppose, but it doesn't still feel natural to be stony broke and to have lack in our life. It always feels uncomfortable. And I think that's actually our relationship with the divine. The divine is constantly telling us what is of our nature and what is not of our nature. And so that's my first view, is that I believe that everybody has the right, and it is their birthright, to be abundant. The second thing that I think with creativity is that what's so wonderful about creativity is that it is unique to every single human that becomes a channel for creativity. It's unique to every single one. And I think this is something that isn't often valued enough. This is something that often isn't fully appreciated, even by the individual who's being the creative. They don't fully appreciate their own magic, and they don't even appreciate. So, one of the things that I really love about art is, for instance, if I draw a picture, that picture, the only one of that picture is mine. Now, somebody can come along and try and duplicate that, but it won't ever quite be the same, right? Even if they're really good at doing my technique or whatever it is, it's never really quite the same. And, and if you look at something like canvas, for instance, and some paint and some paintbrushes and some time to paint, one artist produces this painting and they say, well, that's $20. And another artist takes exactly the same materials and they say, well, that's $2 million. Right? And what is the difference between those two artists? Why is one $20 and one $2 million? And let me tell you, it's literally what they have dared to go for, what they have dared to. So it is really an aspect of their courage. And I think if you have been courageous enough to pick up the paintbrush in the first instance, then absolutely be courageous enough to recognize that your art is one of a kind, whether it's written word, whether it's you've painted something, whatever you've created, and that you should charge for the value of that, because it is, no one else can duplicate it. They can have a go, they can try, but it will never be the same.
Oh, wow. So many chills and shivers as you're speaking through this. I just love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Um, you just have this beautiful air of magic about you. It's the energy. You have the most incredible radiance. And so I know that you have so many magical happenstances and synchronicities in your life, Joanna. Could you just tell us about some of those miracles that you've had, big and small?
Um, It happens all the time now, and not to be blasé about it, but I'm still in awe about it. And I always say that the day that I'm not in awe, that's the day I'm hanging up my magic hat and say no more. But it's just something that I think, happens so often and stuff. And I think Albert Einstein really kind of really summed this up really, really well. And he said something like, and I'm probably going to butcher this quote, but he said something like, you can go through life believing nothing is a miracle, or you can go through life believing everything is a miracle. And I love that he kind of made it very black and white. You can go through believing that nothing is, or everything is. And so there is so many beautiful, incredible moments of synchronicity, but also moments of miracles. The fact that you get up in the morning, that's a miracle. There is some people in this world that can't boast that day. And so there's so many little moments in our lives that I feel are these magical moments. And yet 99% of us ignore them. They just, pretend that they're not magical at all, and it's just life. And I think life is magical, full stop. And so there's lots of really cool synchronicities and things. I mean, the one that happens the most to me is usually, if I'm out with people and stuff like that, I'm very good at manifesting. So when there was I'm thinking about the story of one of my really good friends. So I heard one of my clients contact me to tell me that the Dalai Lama was coming to Inverness. This was a few years ago now. And I immediately phoned up Eden Court Theatre, where I was told that the Dalai Lama had outsold Billy Connolly. Now, if you're in Scotland, you know what a big deal that is. Like, no one outsells Billy Connolly, right? But the Dalai Lama did, which was like hilarious. And so they said, that they'd sold all their tickets within less than it was like less than 24 hours. And I had this kind of like really, really bummed feeling. And I was like, oh, like, I'm not going to get, and I was like, nope, actually, that is not my reality. And I got a pen out and I said, I, Joanna Hunter, will go and see the Dalai Lama. And then whatever date it was, and I wrote the date. And I said, I will go and see the Dalai Lama. And then I followed it up with the action of saying on Facebook, like, hey, if anyone's got a ticket for the Dalai Lama, like, I would really appreciate it. Like, I'd happily pay for it, and I would really appreciate one. So I'd kind of done it, and then I forgot about it. And then I get a phone call from one of my very, very good friends. And he says to me, oh, hey, have you managed to get a ticket for the Dalai Lama? And I said, well, no, not yet, but it's coming. And he said, well, I might be able to help you with that. And he said, but there's a but with it. And I said, okay. And I said, what is it? And he said, well, it's my birthday that day, and I've got 2 tickets. So you would have to come out with birthday drinks with me. So I said, well, that's not a problem. Like, that sounds like fun, And so he says, yeah, we'll go out for dinner, and if you want, and we can grab these tickets. So I was like, happy days. I said, I'm in. This sounds perfect. This is ideal for me. But because of obviously like ticket scalps and things like that, you had to actually pick up your tickets in the morning of the day of the event. So we went, and when we got there, the queue was ginormous. It was massive. And I could feel that sinking feeling again. And I caught myself and I went, no, it's going to be okay. We're going to get to go to the front of the queue before everyone else. And I turned around to my friend. I said, well, listen, I'm a VIP. We're going to get to go to the front of the queue. And the words were not even literally out of my mouth when like a crowd of people, right, like 7 people from the very front of the queue waved us in and was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. We've been keeping a space for you. And then they were like, there's like a big wink, And so I was like, oh, this is awesome. But then when we got in, we had a bit of a problem because they were like, no mobile phones will be allowed into the theater. And I was like, well, shit, I don't know what to do. Where's my phone? I have no idea, like, where we're going to do it. And I turned around to my friend. I said, listen, it's going to be okay. We're going to find someone where we can store our phones with them, and it's going to be absolutely fine. Again, the words were literally not out of my mouth when a woman crosses the car park and my friend recognizes her and says, oh, hey, and like that. And she's like, oh, hey, are you going to this as well? And she was like, oh, I just had to put my phone in my car. And it says, can we put our phones in your car too? So she said, no problem. So we popped our phones in her car. And then we get in the main queue for the theater now to get into the theater. And we have a really, really good conversation in the queue. We meet these people that we've never met before, but everybody's very excited about going to see the Dalai Lama. And we ended up having this like really, really good conversation. When we get into the theater now, I hadn't even given any thought about what type of ticket I had because they were streaming it into these 2 little cinemas that are in Eden Court in Inverness, and then the main auditorium had the actual Dalai Lama. So honestly, I had no idea whether I was going to be watching him on a screen or whether I was going to be in the actual room with him. And so I then end up in the main auditorium, and the weird thing is my chair number is G8, which is a peace summit called the G8 Peace Summit. So my chair is actually called G8, like that's the number of the seat that I was in. Then my friend that I was with, lovely Liam that I was with, he knows the people that are sitting behind us, and we start chatting to them, and they introduce us to the people that they're with, which turns out to be the most interesting woman, who is basically the curator of the Lama relics. Now, I had no idea that this was even a thing. So when a Dalai Lama dies, all of his kind of like disciples, if you like, of that Dalai Lama, they will prepare the body, and then they will burn the body, and they will cremate the body, and then afterwards they will go and collect the relics, so like pieces of bone and things like that. But one of the things that they find in the bones is pearls, which are often known as pearls of wisdom. right? Like they find like actual, like they're not burnt with pearls, but pearls are produced by their body after you burn the body of a Dalai Lama. So like this was fascinating. So anyway, she's the curator of the Lama relics. So she tells us during the break, we sit and have this conversation with this woman that just blew my mind. So one of the things that she has to do every morning when she opens the exhibit for the Lama relics is to count the relics because they multiply. Right, so she has to count each exhibit and that make sure that the bones or make sure that the pearls are like the number that should be in there, because overnight they will sometimes like double. The other phenomenon that happens with these relics is that sometimes they glow, right? So if they glow, she has to shut down the exhibit and then phone the monks, and then the monks come and pray around the glowing object. Right. And so she was telling us all these stories from the relics. One of the lamas who had passed away and then obviously had his cremation and everything, he had a mantra, like Om Mani Padme Om, right? Like that's a mantra. And he had a mantra like that, right? And what they found was they found a large piece of skull left after the cremation, and on the inside of that skull, so not the outside of the skull that would be facing outwards, but on the inside of that skull was the mantra literally written into the bone of this man's skull. So that was my conversation during the break. But my manifestation didn't end there. Out of 1,000 pupils, my son was picked to sit on the stage with the Dalai Lama to represent his school. And they had all these Highland children. And my son was picked out of 1,000 pupils in his school to be picked. So not only did I manifest the seat for me, but my son also got to meet, and he got to meet the Dalai Lama as well. So that is like some of the magic when you're tapped into the field of consciousness and when you're tapped into creating your life on purpose.
Oh goodness, that is just so, so beautiful. Every aspect of that. I am kind of just stuck on those words written on the inside of his skull though. And some people are unaware of energy, think energy doesn't change you and who you are, but there it is, like changing his physiology. That is
It's incredible.
incredible.
Yeah. It does.
Wow.
And there's so many amazing studies. I mean, I'm very into metaphysical science. So metaphysical science, in fact, I'm studying my doctorate in metaphysical science. So metaphysical science is the science that studies the area of life beyond life. So it studies what happens when they ask big existential questions, like what happens after we pass away and die, and it studies energy, and it studies lots of different fields, and there's lots of different fields within metaphysical science that all comes together. But there's been so many studies done on literally the effects of energy. An incredible study, which I'm sure you probably have this book in your bookshop, is by a man called Dr. Masaru Emoto, who worked for the Hado Institute in Japan, which is an institute that's over 100 and it's probably coming up for about 130 years old now. And it's an institute dedicated to studying the energy, to study like chi and prana and life force. And one of the things that he discovered was that water holds memory. And it's I think, one of the most incredible discoveries of the 21st century. So what he did was he took a sample of water from one source, and he then placed it in different bottles, and on some of the bottles he wrote words of affirmation and kindness, like thank you and I'm grateful and I love you. And then on the other bottles he wrote things like you're nothing, I hate you. He wrote words of negation and really not insults, basically. And then he took the water, and after it had been sat in the little tubs for a little while, he poured it into petri dishes and froze the water under the same conditions. The water that had these beautiful affirmations of like, thank you, and I'm grateful, and I love you, they produce these complex, beautiful water crystals in the frozen water. The water in the ones where it said the words of negation and things, and said, you know, I hate you, you're horrible, whatever it was that they'd written on that, they sometimes completely failed to produce any ice crystals whatsoever. The water froze, it just failed to produce any notable ice crystal, whereas there was these, like, they look like snowflakes, these incredible complex snowflakes. Then he took his experiments and tried it with lots of different things. So he took you know, water from really clean sources and rivers, and they produce beautiful kind of complex patterns. And then you took the water from inner cities and things, and again he was duplicating that phenomenon of things. Water responds to music, water responds to positive and negative affirmations. Water has this memory where it holds into it. And I mean, I think this work is so significant because 75% of our body, at least, is water. So you imagine if you're hearing every single day, you know, I grew up in a very negative household. I had a very verbally abusive father. And, you know, and there was an element where I began to take some of that on. And, you know, and that was part of what I had to kind of unlearn as I grew into adulthood and start to rebuild self-esteem and rebuild these things. And I think it's such important work, and it shows, you know, and there's real, like, live science that's being done, and that can, you know, you can duplicate those results and things like that. So they're being done in you know, laboratory conditions. And, you know, something like water, for instance, having a memory, being able to program water is amazing. And it's something I do with some of my students. I have in one of my programs, I have these amazing water labels that they can stick on their water bottles and things to program their water for whatever it is that they want, like success or amazing results or whatever it is that they want to create.
Oh, that's just beautiful. I love hearing about that story and reading it. We have had that book in the shop. Um, what gets me is as you said, our bodies are made of water, and that's why we respond to the moon. That was actually before I was interested really in this kind of spiritual journey and in energetics. That was actually the fact that kind of won me over. And someone, well, I didn't even know it was a friend of a friend at a party said it kind of randomly, and all of a sudden everything shifted for me, and it really clicked. And I was like, oh, of course. And I'm a water sign, and everything just like came into place for me. It was one of those really pivotal moments in my life.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the biggest things. A lot of people, you know, they maybe look at the woo-woo world and they think, oh, it's just woo-woo, you know, like they're dismissive of it. But, you know, we can't ignore the fact that we have a planetary body known as the moon that literally controls the tides of our planet. And that in itself is, you know, that's massive. So if the moon can control the tides, what can the other planets do? Because they all have these gravitational pulls. They all have these, you know, and it's the moving of what I call the subtle energies. And that is when you can learn to harness those subtle energies in your life, well, you can do what I've done, which is go from being on welfare that I was in 2015 in recovery from multiple organ failure, had completely had to change my life because I am literally a walking miracle that I'm still here. And then go from that in 2015 to in 2021 crossing my first $1 million year.
You are a woman of miracles. It's just so beautiful. I love your story. And now I'd like to know, Joanna, what really inspires you and what brings you joy when you need to come down to it? How do you find that inner joy?
Um, do you know, one of the things is that I am that beautiful cliche of, you know, do something you love and you never have to work a day in your life. And I am that cliche. I Coaching and teaching, it's my happy place. I love sharing this knowledge that I've come to, because I don't just, I'm just come to this knowledge. I've embodied this knowledge. and it's changed every aspect of my life. And when I look at the kind of arc that I've been through in my life and my journey that I've been through, I think, I really, really was of the mindset once upon a time of like, okay, well, this is your lot. And if you got dealt a bad hand, you just have to make the best of it, because, nothing's going to change. This is just the way it is. And I went from that very kind of rigid mindset into, I can create the life that I want. And if I can dream it, I can achieve it. And and I'm now living proof of that. And I know that what I'm teaching, I just keep thinking about the earlier versions of me, and that's what really drives me. I just think, oh my goodness, if what I wouldn't have given for somebody to have opened my eyes, earlier, or what I wouldn't have given for somebody to end the suffering, I suppose, that I was in, because it was tough to have that mindset. It was really difficult to think that nothing was ever going to improve, and that you just had to, like, life was happening to you instead of for you. And and that's what really drives me. And I just keep thinking, like, what if I can just reach one person that was in the same situation as I was? It would be, it would just be worth it. And that would be the thing, and work like the $1 million experiment. And of course, we've got a book out by that title as well. And those sort of things, like, what's so epic about that is that it's just knowing that, that work out there is out there reaching people. And and I get told all the time, something that I said or something that was in one of my books has changed someone's life. And I think that's what it is. And it just drives me, because I just think back to that earlier version of how miserable I was, and how and how upsetting I felt life was. I felt like I was upset by life. It wasn't upset, but I was often upset by people too. But life was the thing that really upset me a lot, because it was hard, it was difficult, it was a struggle. I felt the suffering, and just knowing that I can be that person that maybe switches on the lights for someone else and shows them that there is a better way and a different way, and that actually, believe it or not, suffering is actually optional when you know how. But it's the knowing how to switch that off in your life, and to move into a life that works on every level. And yeah, so for me, it's I just feel like such a privilege to teach and coach on these subjects.
Oh, I love that. You're really truly embodying everything you say. I see that and I feel it, and it's just so rich and abundant. I just love it. Um, so if you are talking to that earlier version of yourself, someone who's listening to this podcast and they are wondering, well, where do I start? What would you tell them?
I have a number one favorite tool, and I love this tool because you can literally start today and it will actually cost you zero money, but it is probably one of the most incredible effective tools. And luckily for us, there's been a lot of scientific study done on it as well, which is amazing. So the tool is gratitude. And it's about looking at your life through the lens of gratitude. Now, if you are in a place of real suffering, and if you're in a very difficult and very hard place, it's going to be your lens of gratitude is going to feel very teeny tiny, and you're going to have to try and squint to look through it. But I guarantee that you will find some things that you can be grateful for. And I think the best advice that I say is ignore the buts. So you might say, well, I'm really grateful for this, but I don't like that, ignore the buts. Just focus on what you're grateful for. So what you're doing when you're focusing on gratitude is you're harnessing a universal law called the law of expansion. And what the law of expansion literally states is what you think about the most, or what you give attention to, expands. And if you think about it, if you're in a very negative place and things are hard and things are a struggle, you're kind of slightly obsessed with your problems. You're thinking about them all the time, thinking about them every day. You're thinking about, how am I going to get out of this? Or maybe you're thinking about lack every day because you're worried about money, you're worried about your bills. And so obviously what we think about and we give attention to expands. So you wake up in the morning and you start thinking about lack, and you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so you're thinking about lack, and you think about lack. Is lack there? Yes, lack's there. Then the next day you wake up in the morning, oh my God, lack's there. Yes, lack's there. And you think about the lack, and you keep going and going and going. Well, to interrupt that pattern, if you start thinking about, well, what am I grateful for? Well, I had food today. Like I had my breakfast. Okay, I'm grateful for that. Might not be in the fanciest breakfast that you wanted, might not be exactly what you wanted. You might have off-brand cereal, but you really wanted the brand cereal. It's okay. Don't focus on the but. Focus on the fact that you got food that day. Focus on the fact that you woke up. Focus on the fact that there's lots of things, like even when you're filling your kettle, for instance, like how annoying it would be to go to the village well to fill your kettle and to make that cup of tea, right? How handy it is that you can flick a switch on your kettle and boil your kettle. And so there's so many little teeny miracles every single day that you can start to be grateful for. And as you build that energy, it will build a more positive vibration inside your being. And that positive vibration, well, what you think about expands. And so if you think about everything that you want will be on the vibration of gratitude. Everything that you desire will be on the vibration of gratitude. And if you can start making gratitude journaling a daily practice, and make that part of your everyday, that you would sit down and dedicate maybe 5 or 10 minutes to just feeling grateful, I guarantee you that you're going to probably feel not a lot better after one day, maybe not a lot better after 2 days. But if you make that, if you commit to that, to being a 3 to 4 week practice that you do every day for 3 to 4 weeks, you will look back in that time and realize that you have moved quite far indeed, and that things have started to change in your daily life. And that's what I love about gratitude. Now, there's lots of scientific studies. One of my favorite studies on gratitude were done on nuns. Nuns and monks are brilliant to study. And the reason for that is because they tend to live cloistered, which means that they live all together. So they sleep in the similar types of beds. They eat the same food. And so they're, as a population of humans to study, they're very good because there's a lot of control in there, right? Like they're living similar lifestyles, they're eating similar food. So they're good people to study, because obviously there's a lot of factors when we're studying humans that can come in and affect results. So one of the things that they did when they did this study of nuns is they studied nuns and they asked the nuns to describe themselves, of whether they felt that they were a very grateful person or not so grateful. And this was a 20-year study that was done. And what they discovered was that the nuns who described themselves as naturally like more grateful, they gravitated more towards gratitude, and it was more part of their disposition. They on average lived 7 years longer than the nuns who said that they weren't grateful. So it literally will even extend your life. And there's so many cool things that happens in your body when your body starts producing the chemicals for gratitude. There's a little chemical called oxytocin, and it makes you feel good. And when you give gratitude, your bloodstream releases that chemical. Now that chemical has got a teeny tiny little hook on it, and it actually scrapes the inside of your arteries and clears out your arteries. So have you ever heard the term hard-hearted, right? Somebody who's quite miserable and they're very hard-hearted. Well, actually, when we're under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, the chemicals that our body produces hardens our arteries. And when we feel gratitude, oxytocin is released, and it has this little hook on the molecule of oxytocin that literally scrapes your arteries, taking away the hard-heartedness. How cool is that?
Oh, wow. I had no idea about that oxytocin. That's amazing.
Like, is that not like, are we fascinating beings? And I had no idea that's like going on every day in your body, like whether you're aware of it or not. Like, is that not a miracle? And I think this is what it is that we are these walking, talking miracles. And if you can give a little bit of gratitude for the miracle that you are, I promise that it will help to start ease the suffering that maybe you're going through. If you're going through a hard time and things are really difficult in your life, it is the perfect place to start.
Oh, goodness. I absolutely agree with that. And I am just so profoundly thankful for you, Joanna, and that you came onto So in Flow today. Just thank you so much. I hope you feel that from the bottom of my heart. I can feel it scraping away any hard-heartedness.
I do. It's just been a joy to be here as well. And it just, yeah, keep that date in the future for coming down to your bookshop and doing some book
Oh,
signings.
I will. I am visualizing it. So we will have you. And can you tell our listeners how to find you and if there is still time to be a part of your big money experiment in 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at joannahunter.com, and then I am Joanna Hunter COM on all social media channels. So we made it super simple for people to find me. And yes, we are, you can jump into the experiment at any time. And if what we also offer with the experiment is a beautiful affiliate opportunity. So we'll get Molly an affiliate link so that you can anybody that signs up, it won't cost anybody any extra to sign up through Molly's link, but it means that Molly gets a little reward every time that somebody signs up through her. I did want to make that experiment as accessible as possible, so it's still only $25 for a whole year of mindset and intuition training starting on the 1st of January.
Oh, how exciting. And I feel like we all got such an incredible taster of that here today. If you get this much in a free podcast, can you imagine what a whole year of Joanna's teaching is going to help create in your life? Like, woo, I am super, super excited. I have been since I signed up. So now I'm even more excited. So all of you get in line, go through that affiliate link and become a part of that amazing project. Well, thank you so much, Joanna. Blessings upon you. And just thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you so much for having us here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You take care. Did this episode resonate with you? If your heart feels that pain of being rejected, and you would love to heal the rejection wound and feel accepted, celebrated, and belonging, join Beloved, a 3-week experience to heal the rejection wound forever. It includes a live workshop and group gatherings, a pop-up Facebook group, and a pre-recorded rapid transformational therapy session and subconscious transformation meditation to recode your neural pathways to feel the love surrounding you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for sharing your time and your energy and for sharing your creativity with the world. I would love to give you an invitation to create the magic of flow in your life and work because I know that the world is a better place when you create the visions on your heart. If you would love to focus and become immersed in creative flow, no matter what else is going on in your life, then hop on my website, soinflowwithmollymurray.com, and download 15 minutes to focus and flow for free. If you would love inspiration on your creative journey, join the So in Flow book club through my email list. Join us each month to explore creativity and spirituality. If you would love community and accountability on your creative journey, I would love to invite you to join the Luminaries Creative Collective, a community where you can take part in lush, inspiring creative gatherings. If you would love to become a thriving creative, I invite you to apply to become a luminary through the Luminaries Creative Collective course for thriving creatives. Experience the magic of flow in every part of your life. If you would love support along any step of your creative journey, then reach out to me about my lush one-on-one creative mentorship packages. This podcast is produced in collaboration with Seahorse Bookstore, the independent bookstore committed to awakening the imagination. Order your books and stream your audiobooks through Seahorse. I am so excited for you to create the impact you deserve and to truly thrive as a creative. Together, we are changing the world in wonderful ways. If this discussion piqued your interest, I hope you stay tuned for the next episode.